Good afternoon, everyone. We've now passed 3 o'clock, so we're going to start today's Novatti Investor Briefing. There's still a few people logging on, but my name is Alfred and I'm from Novatti's Investor Relations team. I'll be hosting today's webcast with Peter. As many of you will be aware, today was the release of Novatti's September quarter results. It's been a very busy day on the ASX, so we won't take up too much of everyone's time. After a very brief presentation, Peter will open the floor to questions from attendees. So if you do have any, just type them into your Q&A box. It's the tab on your left if you're on a computer, or at the bottom of your screen if you're on a mobile or smart device. Peter, let me hand over to you.
Okay, thanks Alfred, and good afternoon all. Yes, let's get straight into the quarter's results, and then I want to talk a bit about strategy and really some of the extensive work we're doing, and try and give everyone quite a flavour of what's happening in the company at the moment. In terms of our quarterly results, sales revenue was $10.5 million. It was down a couple of % against the prior calendar quarter, but actually against what we think is much more important, the prior calendar period, the same quarter essentially a year earlier. We're up just under 100%, and again on that measure for what we call our processing revenue, we're up over 100%, 123%. Reduction in quarterly cash consumption. Now that does include a bit of a sugar hit from the R&D, but it also includes, as I'll get to later on, the fact that we have been covering the bank running costs in that quarter. So there's a bit of netting out there. We are very, very focused on cash consumption and really reducing our cash consumption, of course, with the stated aim of becoming cash flow positive. That's really two things there. One is around control of expenses, and the second is continuing to grow the business to scale, which is we think we're doing really well at. And then in terms of something that we know that investors are looking at in nearly every micro and small cap company, how is your cash? We had significant cash, $14.5 million at the end of the quarter, and we've had advice over the last week that the reckon special dividend, which is worth about 12.8 to us, will be paid before the end of November. So one way or another, if you really add them together, sort of circa $27 million of available cash. And just restating what we do as a business, we are a provider of services to other payment companies and banks and fintechs and more traditional merchants and businesses of payment services. So we are very much a B2B company where the other B is either another financial services or payments company, or it's an end merchant. And we do this. We very much say that we're a multi-services payments company. We are providing acquiring, issuing, cross-border payment services, and we are doing a range of billing and office automation type services for companies. Again, restating how we've been talking about this in the past, we've spent a number of years building a quite significant global ecosystem. We define an ecosystem as starting with licenses. We have many licenses, and we are in fact bidding for further licenses, including the bank license in Australia and the e-money issuing license in Europe. We add to those licenses technology that we are continually building, a number of platforms that really drive efficiency and productivity and automation for the services that we provide. And we, in particular, also focus on global partnerships. And whilst in the past we've spoken about Visa and MasterCard as an example with acquiring licenses, and similarly Amex, we've also done a lot of work with WeChat Pay, Alipay, Union Pay for some of the Chinese payment services. We've also, as you'll see with the launch of the stablecoin, initially leveraged off partnerships with Ripple and Stellar, two of the leading cross-border blockchain companies, I think Ripple's number 5 or 6 as a valued blockchain network at the moment, and Stellar is in the 20s. So very, very large partners, and we work extensively with them, and they are helping us launch the multi-chain stablecoin service that we're launching. And then just some interesting observations. We've really seen that some of the large corporates and I guess the private equity companies are launching, and I guess other strategics are looking at deals in financial services. We've seen the various workings with Tyro on how the end game will play out there, whether it be a roll up into a private equity company or Westpac or some other acquirer. And then somewhat validating, we think, our interest in Reckon. We did see the mooted interest from ANZ in MYOB earlier this year, and extensive valuations, and where people can see the strategic fit in either case. So looking at some of our results, as I said, $10.5 million of sales, slightly down against the prior calendar quarter, but again, very strong year on year. And similarly for our year-on-year processing revenues. Cash consumption down. We are absolutely focused on moving to cash flow positive, and that is both constraint on expenses and driving the business to scale. And in terms of cash balance, reiterating $14.5 million at the end of the quarter, with $12.8 million from Reckon coming in about 3 weeks' time. Novatti, which is your company, is increasingly significant leader in the Australian payments industry. We're involved in a number of industry roundtables, recently been part of a panel with the RBA. We post-COVID are now managing to get senior staff to a number of conferences. We've got actually staff members in Singapore right at the moment at the Singapore FinTech conference. We're at the Stellar conference in Rome a few weeks ago, where we were looking at a whole range of digital asset services, in particular announcing the launch of our stablecoin. So we're really seeing that we are becoming part of the fabric. We have a very extensive range of services that really is not easily replicated, and that is allowing us to achieve larger clients and clients that are interested in multiple services from us. So just looking forward, and this is I suppose where the company commits itself to outcomes and what it's trying to do. First of all, the most major thing, we're absolutely shifting to extensive focus on getting to cash flow positive. We see that as constraint on expenditure driving the business to scale. We've already extensively reduced our cash consumption. We do have a very, very handsome balance sheet and cash available to continue. I think in the 4C it shows that on current figures we've got 7 quarters left, but that will actually strongly increase once we achieve the Reckon special dividend funding. So we for our capitalisation have a very strong balance sheet. We have significant revenues, over 10 million a quarter now, and continuing to go for extensive growth there, but not growth at all costs. In terms of how are we actually achieving this scale, we are absolutely trying to leverage the infrastructure and the work that we have done to date. So we are very much focusing on monetizing existing works, existing partnerships, adding features, adding new services, but not extending further than that really. Very much focused on getting the banking license. and it sounds a bit like a broken record, but we do see that is in the near term time frame, all things being equal, and hopefully there'll be good news on that shortly. Stablecoin, we are formally launching that tomorrow, and if people go to audd.digital tomorrow, there is a process where you'll be able to register and do a KYC process, and then, as an example, purchase stablecoins. So, in summary on that, we are absolutely focused on monetizing existing investments and continuing to drive the business to scale. And then if I look at sort of the macro trends, we still think we are absolutely in the right space. The thematics or digital tailwinds for ongoing digital transformation are there. Our sector, payments and financial services, is one that absolutely beckons for digital transformation. We are a major leader in that. Whether it be embedding payments for merchants into their accounting system or ERP, to make them more efficient, to help them with their billing processes, to give them cards for issuing, to make payments to their customers, or for rewards programs, or for even we're working with a lot of cross-border payment companies, so exporters and importers, where we're really helping automate some of their processes and drive down their costs. So, strong tailwinds, very strong thematic of the area we're in, and we think we're very well positioned to capture some of that growth. So, Alfred, that's a little bit of a summary of where the business is at the moment, and very happy to take any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Peter. We've already had about 13 questions come in, so we'll try and get through them.
30 questions. Okay.
13. We'll try and
13. That's
good. Peter, first question is from Anthony, wondering what plans Novatti have for $26 million in the bank.
So, Anthony, we should have, let's say, plus or minus that amount of cash available at the end of the quarter. At the end of this month. But some of that is allocated really towards the bank, assuming we get the license. Some of it is required to continue to fund the negative cash at the moment that we consume on a quarterly basis, and we have some of that as quite an extensive buffer actually at the moment.
Thanks, Peter. Next question comes from Clinton. Can you provide an update on RADI and where that's at?
Yeah, so the RADI is the restricted banking license. And again, I apologise to everyone. It sounds like a broken record, but we work extensively with the regulator. We think we're in the in horse racing parlance, hopefully the closing furlong for Melbourne Cup tomorrow, but we really do think we're in the final straight, and hopefully very shortly we'll be able to show the market very good news on that.
Next question comes from Glenn. Can we talk about seasonality in payment volumes? Clearly, the December quarter is a big quarter for retail payments, and the September quarter is weaker with seasonality in ATX, while the June is big with end of financial year. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yeah, Glenn. So we did have some seasonality in ATX. We will increasingly over time have seasonality in our acquiring business. So acquiring is where you take payments at a merchant, and larger, and with e-commerce merchants or in-store merchants or mobile merchants, then there tends to be a massive run up to Christmas. Right at the moment, in terms of our overall payment flows, it shouldn't be this year. It shouldn't be that seasonal this quarter. but I'd say next year onwards it will be. But parts of our business, or most parts of our business, we're actually trying to grow. Getting very strong month-on-month growth at the moment, and that's really what we're trying to achieve across the board.
Thanks, Peter. Another question from Anthony. Can you provide more detailed explanation of the value of the potential of the European e-money license?
An e-money issuing license, it's a bit like our AFSL for non-cash payments, but probably sort of much stronger, and in some ways you could sort of colloquially sort of say it's halfway to a banking license, but it does allow us to get direct integration into the what's called SEPA, which is the what's called IBANs, which are sort of virtual bank accounts, and it allows us to actually more cheaply, more cost effectively provide some of the services we do now, and it also allows us to launch additional services. So it's really sort of the ticket to the main game, or a big game there. We at the moment provide a number of services in Europe, but we do it as an agent of an EMI, and by becoming a full e-money issuer, it just gives us a lot more legitimacy in the European Union, and it allows us to drive deeper margins.
Peter, question from Harold. When the banking license is granted, what services will be offered? Business, personal, or both?
Harold, was it? Yeah. So our business planning around the bank goes to a couple of models. One is around migrant services banking, and where we really think we can provide innovative services for people coming to Australia, where we can essentially interdict them or meet them before they've actually set foot in Australia, potentially, for instance, international students, and we can provide them banking services early in their life cycle into Australia. We also see that we can provide specialist services for other fintechs, so more banking services for companies that maybe are not fully supported by traditional retail banks in Australia, and with services such as correspondent banking. So a number of payment services, and we would, if you look at the core heritage of Novatti, we are a payments company, and we can provide a lot of that heritage and thinking and expertise into the bank for some of the services that they provide. So whether it be know your customer, anti-money laundering, cross-border payments, those sorts of functions, nearly become part and parcel of the setup of the bank.
Peter, Tony and Billy have asked the same question. What is holding up the license?
What is holding up the license? I think we're dealing with, the regulator is reviewing licenses now. A bank license is a very high hurdle to attain. If you look at it, ASIC as an example handles AFSLs, and to my understanding, all AFSLs, the timing on those has lengthened considerably. And with the bank license, we've had the interruption of COVID, but we've also got a regulator that's, I think, probably overwhelmed, or certainly got a lot on its plate, and they are applying extreme diligence to how they hand out bank licenses. And look, another way to put this is it's just absolutely out of our control as to the final delivery of a license.
Thanks, Peter. This will be the last question I ask on the bank. Bert is asking, are you expecting RADI in this calendar year or next?
we are expecting it this calendar year.
Thanks, Peter. Moving on to some other parts of the business, Glenn has asked, with AUDD stablecoin launching tomorrow, could you provide a little color as to how it is going to work? Will its primary blockchain be on Stellar with a bridge to Ripple or vice versa?
Glenn, so the launch tomorrow is on Stellar, and then we have commenced work on Ripple and also Ethereum. So we will have built it for 3 blockchain networks, and I would say we'll have all 3 live by, let's say, end of January, end of February. But initially it'll be Stellar, and in the initial incarnation, it, you know, as a single blockchain, that bridging is not relevant. I think as we add Ripple and Ethereum, we need to be very mindful of the security in standard bridging, because, you know, a lot of the hacks and interdictions by the bad guys are sort of through bridging arrangements. So at the moment, the technologies that we're using don't sort of really go down that bridging path.
Peter, question from Nathan. Immersion has seen a large increase in staff, especially in the US, over the past 18 months. How are US sales going over there?
So we've, in terms of immersion in the US, we've not as strong as we would have hoped, but we do have a number of sales there, and we've got a very strong sales funnel at the moment. We've launched, we've actually probably, first of all, found COVID a bigger slowdown than we had expected for launching the business. We've had a bit of staff turnover, and as I said, we've been have done is probably switched in strategy a little bit to be a lot more digitally led, and so we've spent a lot of time focusing on getting our marketing right for the US for digital as a partner. And in fact, we've got a number of staff heading from Australia to the US on Wednesday and Thursday this week to attend some conferences and at the moment, and a number of clients.
Peter, question from Matthew. When might we expect revenue to start coming through Reckon's 117,000 users? How material is this revenue in terms of Novatti's overall revenue?
So Matthew, was it? So we do have clients at the moment, and we've run a number of marketing campaigns with Reckon, and we've had some very strong feedback from some of those initial marketing campaigns. That's allowed us to have a bit of a feedback loop on the product, and we've sort of you know, slightly redesigned the payment service for Reckon, and they've launched it as Reckon Payments. But yes, we do have live clients at the moment, and at the moment the revenues for both parties are small but showing really good trends.
Thanks, Peter. Question from Nathan. In the full year results, 2 customers represented over 15% of turnover each. Are these alternative payments resellers, and how is the alternative payments space scaling?
Sorry, can you just repeat that, Alfred?
Yep, from Nathan. In the full year results, 2 customers represented over 15% of turnover each. Are these alternative payments resellers, i.e. FlexiPin, and how is the alternative payments space scaling?
I'm not sure that that's right. We might have one distributor that's 15%. It's probably a bit detailed for this forum, I would say, but we are trying to. The aim of the business is to absolutely diversify across service and customer, so that we we don't have that sort of concentration risk. And if you look at it at the moment, the focus on growth really is into acquiring. It's into a number of parts of the business, but the biggest growth segment is probably going to be acquiring over the next few years. But we are aiming for similar growth in all segments.
Thanks, Peter. Nathan, if that hasn't answered your question, email it through and we'll provide the response offline. Question from Ryan, Peter. Guys, we are starting to run out of time, so I don't think we're going to get through all of the questions. If we don't, we will come back to you offline.
Yeah.
Question from Ryan. With revenue stabilizing, what do you think will prevent the company from growing from this point?
Well, hopefully, Ryan, we've, I'll say, been static for a quarter, and even if we're static for 2 quarters, but the work is happening to really drive growth. I mean, our budget for the business is for growth. So hopefully, I'll say the premise for the question is not quite right. And again, I think if you look at it more on the prior calendar period, then
Peter, I might get you to just turn your video off. It is cutting out a little bit. I'll turn mine off as well to help with the bandwidth. Just 2 more questions here, Peter. Can you provide an update on ATX and if there's been any new products offered to existing ATX clients?
So in Malaysia, they've been working extensively on a partnership with one of the schemes. That they are bringing us sort of new small services to market and new partnerships. So at the moment, it is, pretty much contributing in line with the budgets that we had expected when we bought the company.
Excellent. Okay, everyone, we have run out of time now. There's about 3 questions unanswered, which we'll get responses from Peter offline. Just last few things. Clinton says, well done on the results, Peter. Fabulous. Thanks for answering my questions, from Anthony. Matt says thanks. So Peter, firstly, well done on the fantastic result. And on behalf of everyone in attendance today and shareholders that couldn't make it, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Alfred, and thank you all.